it's Margot, and today I'm bringing you part 2 of the 3-part true story, to the best of my knowledge, of Amy Carlson, also known as Mother God, and the Love Has Won religious group, seen as a cult by many, that made headlines in 2021 for the shocking mummification and decoration of the corpse of their spiritual leader. If you're ready to get spooked and spine tingled, keep watching. This video series contains topics and images that may be upsetting to some. They include allegations of child abuse, animal abuse, financial abuse, medical abuse, sexual coercion, child abandonment, cult indoctrination, and abuse of a corpse, along with discussions of addiction and eating disorders. This video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. All allegations are, by definition, only alleged. Technically, nobody has been found guilty of any wrongdoing in regards to the events mentioned here in a court of law, at least at the time of this recording. My opinions are my own and not representative of anybody but myself. Please don't harass anyone mentioned in this video, including me. Merriam-Webster defines a cult as 1. A small religious group that is not part of a larger and more accepted religion, and that has beliefs regarded by many people as extreme or dangerous. 2. A situation in which people admire and care about something or someone very much or too much. 3. A small group of very devoted supporters or fans. Let's dive right into part 2. Since 2020, a dedicated group called Rising Above Love Has Won has been working to expose and bring down Amy Carlson's Love Has Won organization, which they say has alienated its followers from their families. Among Rising Above's key and founding members are Ariane Witten, the wife of Alex Witten, the ex-Love Has Won member abandoned by the group, who we discussed in part 1, and Alex's sister, Amanda Ray. Rising Above began trying to expose the inner workings of Amy's group in an effort to engage the FBI, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and local sheriff's offices and police departments in Colorado, Hawaii, and California. One founding member of Rising Above, who has wished to only be known as Sheena in the various interviews she's done since 2020, has been spreading a lot of awareness of the dark side of Love Has Won. Sheena's family member remains an active Love Has Won follower despite her efforts. Rising Above is dedicated to helping Love Has Won followers to safely leave the group, with the support network providing any needed resources, including clothing, plane tickets, meals, hotel rooms, or counseling. Members of Rising Above have been tracking Love Has Won's movements, live streams, and insider tips and reports for more than 3 years, hoping to persuade authorities to take action. I dare say it's been like watching a disaster unfolding in front of them, just out of reach. Since the discovery of Alex Witten roaming naked and delirious in the Colorado mountains, Love Has Won began receiving national media attention, even more so since the discovery of Amy Carlson's inexplicably mummified body, which we'll get to in due time. We still have a few more twists, turns, and what the frigs before we get there. While some Love Has Won members have left over the years, either by choice or exile, the followers Amy converted in the last few years since around 2018 appear to be her most devout. It's estimated that group membership for most of Amy's latest Mother God incarnation ranged from 25 to 30 loyal followers, living together at their various properties, and about 50 to 60 widespread members participating in live streams and Skype meetings, buying the group's mail-order products, and making donations online. 2 of the more active members and spokespeople of Amy's inner circle were Lauren Suarez and Ashley Peluso, who go by the names Aurora and Hope respectively. Aurora and Hope joined Love Has Won in 2018. They quickly became prominent figures, often leading the group's daily live streams. Aurora and Hope say they were on a mission to awaken the world. You'll learn a little more about them in part 3. Mother God's final father God, up until the time of her death and apparently beyond that point as well, 46-year-old Jason Castillo, said that when he met Amy, he felt awakened to the fact that God was a woman. As far as I can tell, Jason joined up with Amy at around the time Hope and Aurora did. He first appeared in Love Has Won's YouTube videos in August of 2018. Many believe that Jason's seemingly sudden arrival into Amy's life caused Amy and the entire group dynamic to take a definite turn for the worse. It was the beginning of the era of self-destruction, codependency, and uncontrolled negative impulses that led to Amy's death. Jason, as Father God, claims that his own existence can be traced back 477.5 trillion years, that humans come from Venus, and that he has 3 hearts. He's also referred to himself as the Master of Darkness. Sheena from Rising Above Love Has Won describes Jason as erratic and mean and abusive. She cites one video that shows Jason threatening member John Robertson, saying, "You're going to be a paraplegic." It's even alleged that he once broke John Robertson's nose in a characteristic fit of anger. Current and former members of the group reportedly alleged in interviews that Jason regularly used methamphetamines despite the group's anti-drug policy, though Jason claims he's been clean for years. Many believe Amy and Jason fed off each other's abusive and controlling behavior, and everything got worse from there. It's said that Jason was never far from Amy's side. Amy's alcohol abuse was a large contributing factor in the physical and emotional abuse allegations that have been made by members who've left the group. This alcohol abuse only seemed to escalate over her final few years, with loyal followers and frequent group mouthpieces, Aurora and Hope, using the excuse that Amy's unimaginable chronic pain and obviously declining health required her to self-medicate. Toward the end of her life, Amy began to have trouble holding the alcohol down. Ex-members have described that Amy would stay in bed, communicating with members under the same roof via Skype, or screaming obscenities until she got what she wanted, which was often more alcohol. Her slurred speech and screams of insults and obscenities can also be witnessed in her own YouTube videos from that time period. Everyone seems to agree that Amy's health had been declining for years, though nobody really seemed to know why, or at least wouldn't say it out loud. Amy claimed to have stage 5 cancer, regardless of 2 important factors: that she'd apparently never been diagnosed by a medical professional, and stage 5 cancer isn't something that actually exists. When Amy spoke to Dr. Phil from Hawaii shortly before her death, she indicated that her illness was the result of performing so many spiritual surgeries, and repeated that she had stage 5 cancer throughout her entire body. At the end of her life, Amy was said to have been paralyzed from the waist down, though this claim is disputed, and had to be carried around by members of her inner circle, usually Jason Castillo. Videos and images from the final months of Amy's life show her visibly becoming increasingly unwell and increasingly more volatile. Aside from being unable to walk, she was underweight and had a gray, almost blue complexion. Questions have been raised about whether Amy's followers were guilty of neglect, having not taken her to a hospital despite her ailing health. Members say Amy refused medical care, but one video from October 2020 shows Aurora and Hope discussing Amy's request to be taken to a hospital. There's been moments that Mom has asked us to take her to a 3D hospital, and we're like, "Nope," Aurora said. When asked about this in a later interview, Aurora said that Amy was only joking about going to a hospital, as dying people do, and claimed that Amy had previously signed 3 documents saying never to take her to a hospital under any circumstances. Over time, Amy's appearances on the group's live streams became less and less frequent, until she eventually stopped appearing altogether. By March of 2018, the videos had been taken over by the First Contact Ground Crew team, the core group of about 10 members who lived with or near Amy at the time. Most of these members were young and enthusiastic, breathing new life into the cause. Ashley Peluso, aka Hope, once explained that Amy could no longer appear on video because it would cause the viewers' bodies to explode. This is because her vibration was so high and all of the viewers were so pathetically low. In August of 2020, Love Has Won moved its core membership from Colorado to a rental home on the island of Kauai in Hawaii, ostensibly thinking the warm island air might be therapeutic for Amy's declining health. Purportedly, their plan was to stay in Hawaii for a couple months, then decide what to do next from there. Several other group members flew out shortly after to stay at a nearby hotel. The timing of this move is interesting, though, seeming to take place during the time the media was beginning to cover Alex Whitten's story, and more family members were coming forward to say they needed help freeing their loved ones from what they were calling a cult and a group of scammers. To those family members, it must have looked an awful lot like the group was on the run. It also appeared that the group was trying to hide the fact that Amy's health had declined, and her condition was even more dire than they were letting on. Some suspected she may have even already been dead. Amy reportedly called for her other followers to join her in Hawaii, to travel through a portal to Lemuria, the utopian city deep beneath the Earth's crust of hollow Earth conspiracy theories, and the setting of the epic Mother God origin story that I mentioned briefly in part 1 of this series, lest we forget. Word of the group's arrival in the small island community spread quickly on social media. After watching the group's videos containing what appeared to be both verbal and physical abuse and laced with profanity, island locals were alarmed and organized a protest. Community members also took issue with Love Has Won members allegedly breaking quarantine to go to the beach, completely ignoring local COVID restrictions, and taking free food from the local food bank. Love Has Won members say they never intended to cause any ill will while in Hawaii, and believed a group of internet trolls were hell-bent on destroying their way of life. It seems this targeted campaign of helpful online information that Kauai locals had been made aware of was due to the efforts of the always vigilant Rising Above organization. But it appears the real tipping point with the already wary locals was when Amy declared herself to be the physical incarnation of Pele, the Hawaiian goddess of volcanoes and fire, and creator of the Hawaiian Islands. This offense led to absolute outrage among islanders who revered the deity. They felt very strongly that Amy and her group were insulting their culture and appropriating their spiritual practices. One protester was quoted as saying, "I am blown away by the ignorance. They're predators. They're not here to be a part of the community." The protest began peacefully with about 100 concerned community members holding signs and chanting traditional Hawaiian prayers outside of the group's rental home. This went on for days. Eventually, it escalated to eggs and rocks being thrown at the rental house, breaking windows in the house, and in the group's rental SUV parked in their driveway. There were also reports of small driftwood fires lit around the rental property that night. Love Has Won member Lauren Suarez later referred to the incident as a riot, saying it was very scary and traumatic. Local protesters have since claimed that their group remained non-violent the entire time, a practice known in Hawaii as kapu aloha, and weren't sure who had actually caused the destruction. Some of Love Has Won's members certainly escalated the situation by addressing the protesters through their YouTube videos. This included an address from Amy herself, telling the residents to F off, and stating, "I'm Pele, bitch, don't push me." I'm sure that was wicked helpful. The situation got so intense that Kauai's mayor, Derek Kawakami, went to Love Has Won's rental home to negotiate with the group to help them leave the island, telling the group that he couldn't guarantee their safety if they remained in his community. He thought it best that they move on. Police went to the hotel where other group members were staying, telling them that it might be a good idea to leave, and warning them that if they decided to stay, it wasn't going to get better, according to Suarez. The mayor's office issued a statement that no members of the Love Has Won group were cited, arrested, or informed that they needed to leave Kauai. It was just an offer to assist them if they wished to relocate. The group took them up on the offer, with local officials providing them with transportation, flight arrangements, and a police escort that kept a close eye on the situation right up until all 14 Love Has Won members boarded the plane. Yet it still didn't exactly go off without a hitch. In a last-ditch effort to stay in Hawaii, Love Has Won attempted to relocate to Maui instead of heading back home to Crestone. According to a statement from the Maui Police Department, officers confronted Amy, Jason, and member Miguel Lamboy at the airport, telling them that there were issues with their travel documents. They said they'd made lodging reservations at an unapproved location. That's when Love Has Won finally gave up on island life and went back to Colorado. The group left the island in September of 2020, their Hawaiian vacation lasting only a few weeks, and I dare say not as restful as they'd hoped. Aurora was later quoted as saying, "I feel a lot of it was miscommunication. There was obviously a deep energy there. They don't like outsiders. They clearly don't like anyone from the mainland." Yeah, that must be it. By the time the group had arrived in Hawaii, Love Has Won's following had swelled to about 200 dedicated followers. Their platform was steadily growing online, and after the media attention they attracted during the Hawaii scuffle, their reach actually grew even greater. Around the time the group was getting unanimously voted off the island, Amy, her mother Linda Haythorne, and her sisters Chelsea and Tara, as well as her most trusted followers and designated spokespeople, Lauren Suarez and Ashley Peluso, along with Rising Above's Ariane Witten and Amanda Ray, among other guests, appeared on the Dr. Phil television show. Amy's family was desperate to get through to her and snap her out of her delusions, and to get her medical intervention for her physical deterioration, but the attempt was unsuccessful. Amy seemed completely unfazed by the interaction. To me as a viewer, and strictly in my opinion, Dr. Phil seemed unwilling to push Amy on any topic, and there was no real help offered. The entire thing was completely disappointing and anticlimactic. I could feel Amy's family's frustration. On my TV, Amy's skin appeared to be an off color, but more like fake tanner than the blue-gray you can clearly see in pictures of her from that time period. I felt like they may have covered it up with makeup, or indeed self-tanner. She appeared to be extremely thin, Skyping into the show from her bed. She gave no real answers to any questions, but made it clear she didn't feel she was doing anything wrong, even when confronted with videos that clearly showed abuses being perpetrated by her, allegedly. Feeling that Dr. Phil was their last chance, Amy's family must have been incredibly disappointed by the outcome. Love Has Won's movements aren't entirely clear upon their return to the mainland. What we do know is that Amy and her small group of most dedicated followers, which included Aurora, Hope, and Jason, ended up staying in the area of Mount Shasta, California by April of 2021, when Amy's health seemed to be deteriorating more rapidly than ever. It's been said that Amy wanted to die at or near Mount Shasta, another mythical opening to Lemuria. Members of Rising Above called the police multiple times to perform wellness checks on Amy upon the group's return to the mainland from Hawaii, when Amy's health seemed to be in much faster decline, but were left frustrated. They kept being told police couldn't enter the home. On April 14, 2021, photos began circulating among Love Has Won members and had been leaked to members of Rising Above that showed Amy in a seemingly unconscious state, with members saying privately that their leader's vessel was not sustaining. In subsequent live streams, members of Love Has Won had stated that Amy's eyes were rolling back in her head and she was having difficulty breathing. This prompted members of Rising Above to request another wellness check on April 16th. They were told by police officers that police and an ambulance had gone out to the property, but two Love Has Won members had met them at the door, saying Amy wasn't there, so they left. Rising Above were aghast that the police had believed what Love Has Won told them without investigating. But when Amanda Ray called authorities to ask about the aborted wellness check, a police officer replied that they couldn't find Amy on the property, despite searching the house. A live stream from Love Has Won on April 16th stated that Amy was very, very, very close to dying, and that she's slowly going out of her vessel. On April 17th, photos of Amy appearing to be deceased began circulating among Love Has Won members, according to Rising Above. In another live stream 4 days later, on April 21st, members claimed Amy was in stasis and refusing medical care. It's unknown whether she was already dead at that time. Sheena from Rising Above has said, the last person from outside the cult who saw her alive is the owner of the cabin they were renting that we asked to do a wellness check on her on April 10th. He said goodbye to her. She looked like she was dying. Meanwhile, Love Has Won's home base was still in Crestone, Colorado, a tiny mountain town with a year-round population of only about 100 to 150 people, but an apparent abundance of spiritual practices, missing people, murders, and questionable suicides, in my opinion. Several Love Has Won members were staying at their mobile home in a remote cul-de-sac in Crestone. This group is owned by Love Has Won member Miguel Lamboy, otherwise known to the group as Archangel Michael Silver. To give you a little background, a few years earlier when Amy ended her relationship with Amaranth White Eagle, her Colorado mountain man and original father god / twin flame, she left with Miguel Lamboy, who became her housemate at the very least, and oft-times YouTube cameraman. That is, until Lamboy joined the army in 2014 at the age of 35. This would certainly be nothing short of a miracle, if you accept the veracity of Love Has Won's teachings, considering Love Has Won claims that when Lamboy met Amy, he was suffering from end-stage lung cancer. already having one lung removed. Of course, Mother God was able to heal him. To be honest, I've had some issues getting information about what exactly Mr. Lamboy was to the Love is One organization, and how deeply he's involved now. It's suspected that his ties and loyalties go much deeper than he's let on, but there will be more on that in Part 3 of this series. For now, he certainly factors in very prevalently in the discovery of Amy's death. On April 28, 2021, Miguel walked into the Salida police station with a very unique story to tell. According to affidavits, Miguel told investigators that 5 Love is One members had arrived at his place on April 27th asking to stay for a while. This wasn't unusual, so he said yes. He left the next morning for a short trip to Denver for supplies. Upon returning home, he made a shocking discovery. In a back bedroom of his mobile home, laid out on the bed was what Miguel soon realized was the body of Amy Carlson, who he knew and reported to the police as her nickname, Leah Carlson. A statement written by Saguache County Corporal Stephen Hansen reads, Mr. Lamboy stated that Ms. Carlson's skin appeared to be gray in color, and her eyes were glazed over or missing. Mr. Lamboy stated that it was obvious that Ms. Carlson was dead because her eyes were missing. Mr. Lamboy stated that the body appeared to be mummified, with Ms. Carlson's teeth exposed through the lips. Mr. Lamboy stated that Ms. Carlson was wrapped in a cloth. Miguel told police he tried to take his 2-year-old son and leave the house, but the other people there wouldn't let him leave with the child. That's when he left the house alone and drove straight to the police station. Armed with search and arrest warrants, county sheriff's officers arrived at the home at just before midnight the same day. Now this is where it gets really freaky. This is also where you should look away or skip ahead to the next chapter if you don't want to see pictures of the actual scene police walked into from their body cam footage. This does include Amy's body, and it can be pretty startling. For those who want to listen to the description but not look, I'll tell you when these images are no longer on the screen. They found Amy's body in the back bedroom in an advanced state of decomposition, partially mummified, in a sleeping bag, wrapped in a cloth and adorned with twinkling Christmas lights. Her empty eye sockets were decorated with glitter, and a crown had been placed atop her head. Her lips had receded back from her teeth, she was skeletally thin, and her skin was a very unsettling shade of blue. The first police officers on the scene initially thought her skin had been painted blue, then chalked the strange color up to decomp, but Amy's skin had turned blue months prior to her death. In an affidavit, police said, the mummified remains appeared to be set up in some type of shrine. They stated the group had been burning sage in the room and covering the corpse in essential oils to keep the odor down, as they were worshipping her. Amy had always enjoyed childlike aesthetics. Her bedroom/shrine was decorated with the things she enjoyed, much like a child's bedroom, with unicorns, rainbows, hearts, and stars. A few rabbit plushies were on the mantel above Amy's body, as if standing guard. Police also found Miguel's 2-year-old son and the 13-year-old daughter of another adult in the house, both uninjured. Miguel's son was returned to him. Police also noted seeing a Nissan SUV with the back passenger seat laid down, which Miguel told police he believed the group used to transport Amy's body to Colorado from California. Okay, it's safe to look now. Corporal Steve Hansen later told the local media, I've never seen a group of people be so nonchalant about a dead person in their back room. Saguache County Sheriff Dan Warwick stated, wow, I mean, it's just, you shake and go, wow. There's not much more I can say. I've been doing this for 26 years. I used to say I've seen it all. I don't say that anymore. 7 Love is One members were arrested at the home. Jason Castillo, aka Father God, John Robertson, Obdulia Franco, and Ryan Kramer were charged with tampering of deceased human remains and child abuse. Christopher Royer and Sarah Rudolph were charged with abuse of a corpse and false imprisonment, but all charges were later dropped. The prosecutor stated, our office looked at all the documents and everything that was provided, and from our perspective, the allegations could not be met beyond a reasonable doubt. Amy's mother, Linda, objected to the prosecutor's decision to drop the charges, saying it seems like they're kind of brushing it under the rug. The weeks leading up to Miguel Lamboy's discovery of Amy Carlson's body are a mystery to everyone outside of her tight inner circle of followers, who have only given conflicting and incomplete accounts of when, where, and how she actually died. This is compounded by how little helpful physical evidence the Saguache County coroner Tim Perrin had to go on. The body believed to be Amy Carlson was so decomposed that he wasn't able to take fingerprints to make an identification. She was finally positively identified by DNA testing. The condition of Amy's corpse led Perrin to believe she may have been dead for a month or longer when she was found, but Rising Above and Amy's family seemed to be sure that the owner of the cabin Amy's group was renting in California had seen her alive on April 10th, just 18 days before Miguel discovered her body. Saguache County Sheriff Captain Ken Wilson was also quoted early on as saying Amy's body had been dead for several weeks to a month, but apparently there has since been a gag order placed on the case, so police were no longer able to discuss it. While waiting for the body to be identified, Amy's family had very little doubt that it was her. For years, they'd been certain Amy's leadership of Love Is One would end in tragedy. After the discovery of Amy's corpse, Love Is One posted a statement to their now deleted Facebook page acknowledging that Mother God had ascended. To Love Is One's members, ascension means ascending to the 5D world, not dying, and they actually believed their physical body would ascend with them. Apparently, their mummified remains being carted away by a coroner counts as ascension as well. Those who don't ascend, aka non-believers, will be left behind and destroyed, their energies recycled into the sun. Amy's complex cause of death wouldn't be determined until early December of 2021, nearly 8 months after her body was discovered by Miguel Lamboy and Colorado authorities. I'll end this video here for now, but be sure to come back for part 3, where we'll discuss Amy Carlson's actual cause of death, more details on how Amy's body traveled from Mount Shasta, California to Crestone, Colorado, and find out what her most devoted followers are doing today. You won't want to miss this disturbing conclusion. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts on this story in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching.